Hi, my name is Natrina Kennedy, and today we will be presenting on childhood obesity in the Roseland community. I will start by informing you of the strengths and weaknesses of the Roseland community, as well as the health problem of childhood obesity in this community. Followed by me will be Kate, introducing our intervention, goals, objectives, and our logic model. Following her will be Mark and our funding and budget. And finally, we will end with Kaylin, who will speak on our evaluation processes. The Roseland community is located on the far south side of Chicago, Illinois. Roseland has a total population of 42,505 individuals. 96.1% of this population is African American and also has a child poverty rate of 39.3%. These factors are unique to this community and also have a great impact on not only the overall health of this community, but also childhood obesity as well. The health problem that we would like to discuss in regards to the Roseland community is the alarming rates of childhood obesity in this community. Our causal theory statement states the risk of obesity among children in the Roseland neighborhood of Chicago is indicated by the high rate of childhood obesity is caused by specific health behaviors, namely diet low in fruit vegetables, diet in high processed foods, lack of physical exercise, poor stress management, and poor sleep patterns, but is mediated by knowledge of and attitudes towards obesity prevention and biological processes. Given that socioeconomic status, social support, lack of access to the grocery stores with affordable healthy foods, and lack of access to recreational and green spaces for exercise moderate the causes, and that race, age, genetic predisposition, and family history exist prior to these causes. In the community of Roseland, there are two major areas of weaknesses, one being high crime rates and the second being high unemployment rates. The violent crime rate in Roseland is currently at 7,515 per 100,000 individuals. This leads to a lack of community safety, which is currently at 65.8% for Roseland and 78.1% for the city of Chicago. High crime rates and poor neighborhood safety deters community members from engaging in physical activity behaviors. 37.3% of Roseland community members report inactivity compared to 22.9% in the city of Chicago. Such high physical inactivity likely contributes to similar high rates of childhood obesity, which currently stands at 24.3% in the Roseland community. The unemployment rate in Roseland is currently at 25.3% compared to the city, which is at 9.5% of unemployment. Individual poverty of 26.9%, childhood poverty, which is at 39.3%, and this leads to a lack of access to affordable and nutritious foods, which Roseland has a lack thereof of 38.3% of lack of access to food, which also decreases the daily fruit and vegetable consumption in Roseland. Consequently, this health behavior of poor diet likely causes higher rates of childhood obesity in the Roseland community as well. There are also two major areas of community strengths in the Roseland community as well, one being churches. There are approximately 20 churches in the Roseland community. Churches provide resources to individuals such as shelter, food, clothes, and in some instances, even finding employment for Roseland community members. Churches also combat community violence through means of community programming, teen outreach, and partnering with programs like the Chicago Food Depository or the WIC Food Center. Secondly, community organizations also help with the strengths of the community as well. Centers like the Youth Peace Center of Roseland, Taking Kids Off the Block, the Agape Community Center, and Catholic Charities also provide resources, food, and clothes to help assist with many of the issues and health problems of this community as well. In tailoring our intervention to the strengths of the community, we have currently three vantage points that we will focus our intervention on. One being the school system, the second being churches, and the third being local community organizations. In our efforts to understand the health needs, strengths, and problems of the Roseland community, we took our time and interviewed different members of the community, the school system, as well as the local churches and organizations within the community. We started our interview process within the school system to help understand the options and foods that children are exposed to on a daily, as well as the funding that the school offers to ensure healthy foods for children, specifically school-age children. So we spoke with a school operations manager at CICS Loay Bond. It was here that we found that there are no organizations that are currently fighting childhood obesity in the Roseland community, and there seems to be more concern for affordable foods versus healthy foods. There are more churches with food pantries and grocery stores, and maybe just one grocery store within the community. We learned that for many kids, their breakfast and lunch is offered via the school system versus their homes, as many families cannot afford both breakfast, lunch, or lunch and dinner. It was here that we found that there is a lot of funding that goes into providing healthy foods for children, since this is their only meal during their day on a daily basis. Within the same school, we spoke with the case manager in regards to the health problem of childhood obesity in the Roseland community. The case manager brought along socioeconomic issues that also increases childhood obesity in the Roseland community. Specifically, she talked about how parents don't eat right and that we live in a fast-paced environment where we don't include meal preparation, and the meal preparation is pushed on the back burner, and that one of the issues that she has with her students' parents is what they eat and how what they eat contributes to their level of focus. Specifically, red dyes, blue dyes, hot chips, high fructose corn syrup, and sodium play a major role in the body, especially the mind. How the students think, their hormonal levels, their ability to focus can be directly tied to their food intake. She has some children who have diabetes or who are pre-diabetic and have been predisposed to a lot of these issues. She believes that food and choices along with access to better foods, for instance, produce tends to not last as long as other foods, which also brings along the options and issues of access to healthy foods in grocery stores, as many of these family members and parents have to travel 15 minutes by car or 45 minutes to an hour to get to a grocery store. So it's a matter of the cheapest items to get or more items to get, or a matter of a bang for my buck. In most cases, healthier foods are more expensive foods. And finally, she believes that we have to start somewhere because it's becoming a more prevalent problem in the community of Roseland. And we need to take more action and start talking about it and increasing knowledge in this community as well. We then moved outside of the school system and into the churches. And we spoke with a pastor who also is a pantry owner. He's been a pastor for over 40 years and a pantry owner for more than 10 years. His food pantry is directly tied to the Chicago Food Depository. And he found in his work that food pantries provide a lot of access to foods, and in some cases is the only option or outlet for some families when it comes to foods. He believes that Roseland needs more grocery stores or places that provide produce and healthy food options for many of the families. He believes that the nearest grocery store is, once again, 15-minute drive or 40 minutes to an hour on public transportation. We are in need of a source of encouragement for people struggling in the community with drug addiction, as well as alcoholism. And he also even spoke about a lot of the unemployment community and how it contributes to people being unable to provide meals for their families. New grocery stores will help, and sources of jobs and affordable produce will also make a huge difference when it comes to obesity, specifically childhood obesity in the community, as children only have options that their parents have, and that parents are contributing to what their children are eating or exposed to as far as food intake. We ended with a interview with a community member of Roseland for many years, and one of the biggest things that she said during her interview was that when it comes to food, you'll find kids that are obese and you'll find kids that are really, really skinny. Neither kids are eating what they need to. And this was very, very important for us to learn in regards to the overall attitudes and beliefs of the community. What we find during the overall interview process is that many of the individuals we interview do not believe that childhood obesity is an issue in the community, but access to foods and the socioeconomic status of the community is in a horrible place right now, and that we need to get back to a greater place economically to increase the health outcomes for his community. Overall, it was a great opportunity to speak with all of his community members, and it gave us a great chance to come up with a successful and effective intervention to combat childhood obesity.
Thanks, Natrina. Now I'm going to give a brief overview of our intervention. So based upon our community needs assessment that we conducted in the Roseland neighborhood, as well as our community interviews, we collectively chose to develop a healthy lifestyle program. As such, our team will implement and evaluate a group-based program that empowers healthy and sustainable lifestyle practices among school-aged children in the Roseland community through interactive and educational diet and exercise activities. So once we had established our intervention, we then developed an overarching goal as well as SMART objectives for our healthy lifestyle program. The overarching program goal that we developed was to reduce the prevalence of childhood obesity among school-aged children in the Roseland community of Chicago through improving dietary practices and increasing physical activity. To achieve the aforementioned goal, we developed 5 main objectives. The first objective states that by the end of year 1, 48 one-hour-long exercise workshops will be facilitated to children in the Roseland community by health coaches. We hope that these workshops will be held at the Lloyd Bond Elementary School located in the Roseland community as part of their after-school program. Our second objective states that by the end of year 1, 75% of children participants will improve their physical activity practices by averaging at least 150 minutes of exercise per week or more. We chose this benchmark of 150 minutes of physical activity per week as this is the recommended amount per the CDC. The third objective of our program states that by the final month of the program, children and guardians in the Roseland neighborhood will participate in a total of 12 two-hour nutrition and meal preparation courses held by dietitians and nutritionists. This will equate to roughly 1 nutritional workshop per month. Our fourth objective states that by the end of year 1, 75% of children participants will improve their dietary practices by consuming an average of 6 to 7 servings of fruits and vegetables per day. This dietary benchmark was informed by the United States Department of Agriculture's recommendations on fruit and vegetable consumption. Our fifth and final objective states that by the end of year 1, 75% of children participants will achieve a healthy weight according to their age, height, and gender. This will be measurable via a scale and a CDC body mass index chart. Next, I'm going to give a brief overview of our theory-informed logic model. Firstly, the problem statement refers to the high prevalence of childhood obesity in Roseland and the long-term health impact this can have. Again, the goal is to reduce the prevalence of childhood obesity in the Roseland community via diet and exercise workshops. The theory underpinning our program, or the rationale, is the ecological model, which recognizes that multiple factors contribute to a health outcome. For example, this considers how knowledge, attitudes, and practices affect numerous lifestyle choices, which in turn affect an individual's overall health or lack thereof. Next, our assumptions primarily focus on participant engagement and motivation to live a healthy lifestyle. They will need to play an active role in modifying habits to achieve any sort of weight loss. Our inputs include a nutritionist, health educator, and volunteers, as well as program planning, money, supplies, promotional, and educational materials. The activities include recruiting and training nutritionists, health educators, volunteers, developing a program protocol and curriculum for the workshops, and distributing both educational and recruitment materials. Our outputs primarily center around the number of children participants that we reach in the Roseland community, as well as the number of recruitment and educational materials dispersed, and finally the number of staff members and volunteers we're able to recruit and train for the implementation of our project. The short-term outcomes center around increased knowledge and improved attitudes around healthy lifestyle practices. This includes healthier eating and increased physical activity. This also relates to our intermediate outcomes, which include improved dietary practices with increased consumption of fruits and vegetables, as well as increased physical activity, roughly 150 minutes per week, and finally, a lower body mass index. And our long-term impact, as we stated before, is to lower the rates of childhood obesity in the Roseland community. Finally, there are numerous external factors to consider. Firstly, parental consent or lack thereof in allowing children to participate. Also, this is not a randomized controlled trial and there is no comparison group. Thus, there may be some causal factors improving health outcomes beyond our program alone.